Final Fantasy XVI is the newest in a long run of an esteemed franchise, and it bucks a lot of the trends the franchise has set up, while staying true to a lot of them as well. It's incredibly divisive in a lot of ways, but I do think that at its core, it is still very much a Final Fantasy game. I think that shows in the way the storytelling is done, and in the way that the summons are utilized. I'm not going to talk spoilers in this section, however, we will have a full spoiler section later on in the review. So let's get started with Final Fantasy XVI. FF16 is about Clive Rossfield, and after a rather unfortunate series of events, the path that his journey takes throughout this world. I really like Clive. I think that he becomes one of my favorite characters in the entire series, and a lot of the side characters are also really, really good. Just about all the story beats are phenomenal. And I think the way the cutscenes are handled, the voice acting that delivers those scenes, really, really good and absolutely worth experiencing. Side characters are really solid. Like I said earlier, I like most of them, but the game does get kind of side quest heavy to get that information across to you. You have to do side quests early on to be able to unlock the really powerful ones that you get later on. And often those side quests are dumped on you 10, 15 at a time, which can be really annoying when you just want to get to the next story beat because you want to hear what Sid has to say, or you want to see this scene and hear the wonderful dialogue that's being given by some incredible voice acting. The combat is action-based, and a lot of people were upset about that, but I think it actually turned out really well as you use the different abilities from different icons to be able to do different things in combat. I know that's really vague, but I'm trying not to spoil too much right now. I love the way the iconic abilities work and the way combat flows. I do think the game's a little too easy in some ways, and maybe that's my fault for doing all the side quests, but I wanted all the story. However, the boss fights are really, really good, and the moment-to-moment gameplay feels really solid, even if there's not much that really will stop you. There's a couple different ways you can build your Clive when it comes to different abilities that make things harder, but maybe more satisfying to combo off of. And so there are options, but you don't, unfortunately, unlock the harder difficulty mode until you beat the game. So if you were hoping to be able to just bump the difficulty up if you're having a really easy time of things, unfortunately, that's not an option. However, due to some really interesting gear that you get extremely early on, it has great accessibility features to make the game easier for people that may be struggling or that may have a disability that makes it where they can't play games like this often. And I think that's really cool. I wanted to make sure I mentioned it in the review because most games that are action games don't bother to do that. And so, yeah, maybe an easier option and a harder option being available right away would have been better. I do still think that they have a really cool way of doing it here. And the fact that you can respec your ability cost at any time for free is really good. It means that you can basically build out an entire icon and then decide, you know what, I don't really like this one, I'm going to take it back. And I had a lot of fun with the icons and their abilities. I think they're really well utilized here, really well recognized here. It's very fluffy, it's very thematic for each one. All of the abilities feel really cool and interesting. Some not quite as much my style as others, but at the end of the day, I liked using all of them. I mentioned gear earlier, and gear does wind up playing a pretty big role in the game, but only for stats for the most part. It's really unfortunate because you can craft a really cool looking sword or really cool looking belt or set of braces, and then before you know it, those bracers have been completely replaced by something that you bought at a shop for gil. And you have so much gil, why not buy it? Because you're only ever going to get more. There are some accessories that are really handy to have, like one that gives you more ability points or one that gives you more XP. But for the most part, it was kind of just, okay, yeah, here we have these. There are some you get that give you like, hey, this iconic ability does a little bit more damage or has a little bit less cooldown. And that's cool. But realistically, I rocked most of the game with this one ups my damage, this one gives me more XP, this one gives me more ability points, and I had no problems whatsoever. Potions are a really interesting thing in this game. They're very important in this game, and there's a lot of Final Fantasies where you can just cheese it with potions. Potions here are going to be your way to heal. Clive cannot just cast healing magic, which is really interesting. However, you can, by doing side quests, and you need to do the side quests if you want to get all the story, wind up having the ability to carry way more potions than you're ever going to need in combat. Again, the game just feels a little bit too easy, and having this many potions on a higher difficulty probably would have been really cool, but I didn't have the option to select a higher difficulty until after I'd beaten the game. Your other party members are not controllable by you in combat. Unfortunately, I really was hoping for the ability to switch between them Tails style, to be able to just, hey, I'm going to switch over to this one and play for a minute and then switch back. But I do think they're pretty cool. One of the main party members that you get often has an accessory you can equip that lets you use his abilities a little bit more reliably, but he also does some really cool stuff on his own, and he has the ability to heal, which is really handy. I like him a lot. He's the best boy, and he's wonderful and amazing, and I love him. Combat in FF16 is action-based, like Final Fantasy 15 or like Final Fantasy 7 Remake, and that is the only option. There is no turn-based option here. It is just action. I really love the action. I find it fast. I find it really fun to combo different things together. It's frenetic, right? But I know a lot of people were hoping for turn-based options as well, and I do think the accessibility options make it where even if you wanted turn-based, you can still have some fun here, but it is just the action-based combat, so please keep that in mind. Combat's really deep with the different ways you can mix 3 different icons' abilities together with Clive's basic combos and his basic abilities that he has at all times to really make some weird, fun builds. And I've seen a few people say, well, I couldn't do as much as I wanted to do, so I just stuck with this one icon or this one set of icons. And I really think the game shines when you're mixing and matching icons to get different abilities that combo together. I don't want to get too much into spoilers here, but for most of the game, I ran with a mainline damage icon. Like, I focused on doing damage, and then one that gave me some more options to juggle opponents or to stun them, and then one that gave me some really good defensive options. I think that's where the game really shines. In that, I wish there were more icons that gave me different options to be able to mix things together. Now, I said that's where the game really shines, but there's one other avenue of this game, one other aspect that really stands out, and that is the cinematic boss fights. There are a lot of games that try to be cinematic with their boss fights, and you get cutscenes that break up the action. Final Fantasy 16 lets you play those cutscenes, and it's really, really cool. I know a lot of people that have said, you know, well, I wish that it was more just a cutscene and I didn't have to interact, but I firmly disagree. And after finishing Final Fantasy 16, I wish more games let me be more interactive with the cutscenes, with the boss fight, because there are moments in this where I forgot for a moment I was playing and got hit by an attack. Because like, oh yeah, no, I'm in control here, because I'm used to video games not letting me have control during that, even if it is like an on-rails section or something like that. One last thing I want to touch on before we move into the spoiler section is the music. Music is absolutely incredible. I know that a lot of older Final Fantasy fans, and I'm an older Final Fantasy fan, I've seen a lot of them say that this soundtrack doesn't stand up to like 6 or 7 or 9, but I disagree. I think the soundtrack is really, really good. It's clear that Soken, you know, had a lot of plans here, and when you have some of the boss themes where boss theme from a previous game comes in to tie into it, it's really good. But there's also musical references to Final Fantasy 9, Final Fantasy 4. There's so much love in this soundtrack, and that's not even counting like individual character themes or how good some of the boss themes are. The last 3 big boss themes are incredible. The soundtrack is great, and I feel like people sleep on it because they say, well, it's not a regular Final Fantasy, so the music's not going to be as good, and I firmly disagree. I think that specifically home base theme, some of the city themes, and especially the character and boss themes, absolutely breathtaking. 100% worth checking out, even if you're not a fan of Final Fantasy. So let's talk story. There will be spoilers from this point on for the entire story, and if you care about those, then yeah, you should probably click off now. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you. I love the story in Final Fantasy 16. Early on, I was unsure where it was going to go and what it was going to do, but it truly was a Final Fantasy story the whole time. And I really, really like Clive, Joshua, and Sid, Jill, and Gav, and the characters are all so good, but that core story of Clive and Joshua, these 2 brothers that are just trying to make it through the world that is basically turned against them, it's really, really good. Sure, I wish Jill got to do more in the story. I feel like she gets sidelined pretty hard towards the end, and I kind of hate that because I really like Jill as a character. Yeah, there are some characters that I feel like don't really get spotlighted at all, and Why did some of them do some of the things that they did? But at the end of the day, I am such a sucker for inherited will. And Sid Telemon, just what an incredible version of Sid we get in this game. Incredible character, great voice acting. Uncle Byron! Uncle Byron makes me cry, man. That scene with him and Clive, oh! And that's not even counting, you know, the Prince, Dion, and everything that happens there. 16 is an incredible game, and normally I take you through like my thoughts on each of the big moments, so we'll cover them as we go. We'll talk about the boss fights as we go, but I cannot do this story justice when I talk about it, and right now it's my favorite story of the year. It is absolutely incredible where this game goes, and the growth that Clive goes throughout the course of this game. Getting to see Joshua and everything that's happening there, it's really, really good. The game starts with, and this will be a full story walkthrough here, as best as I can do. I'm not very good at these. They're often little information that I forget and things that I forget to bring up. So please let me know in the comment section down below if I forgot your favorite moment, because I'd love to talk about these things with y'all. But from the very beginning, leading up into that fight with Ifrit and Phoenix, and I knew what was going on. Deep in my soul, from the way that Clive was reacting, I knew what was going on, and he refuses to admit it, and it's really, really powerful, because the moment when he finally has to admit it, that he was Ifrit all along, just makes it so much more potent in my mind. We have him meeting Jill and meeting Sid and everything going on there, and Sid giving him another chance, another way to live, and Clive choosing to take it, choosing to step up and do what he has to do to be able to try and make things right, even after he knows what he did, seeking the hood man only to realize that it was him all along, and it's just so good. And of course we know all of this is because of Ultima. We know all that. But they don't. And obviously we don't know that right away either. It's something we have to figure out. But it's really, really solid. I loved getting to play as young Clive and everything happened there. Torgal coming with us and getting to fight alongside Tiamat and Wyvern and all that there. But the best part about that entire first sequence of the game is absolutely coming to the hideaway. Clive not really wanting to live anymore, and Sid reminding him what life is like, reminding him what it means to be a person. It's really, really good, and you can see the change start in Clive as he goes from the slave that he was turned into to becoming human again. It's really, really good. That leads us into the fight with Benedicta, and I think this is a really good fight. It's a fight that, compared to the rest, it's not as big, right? But it was absolutely the first big set-piece fight, and I think it did its job really well. From that fight, you get another icon that you can use, and you get a really, really cool sequence with some great music as you fight Garuda, and I think it really sets you on the track for what's to come, because each big boss fight after that just gets more bombastic somehow in a crazy way. I think that as we go through here, the stuff with Gav is really good. I wound up loving Gav as a character. Gav crying at the end almost got me to cry. I was right on the edge there. I really like Gav. Jill being able to go with you now as the dominant of Shiva and being able to help you along your journeys, becoming a party member for a long time, is really good. I like Jill a lot. Jill Warwick needed more time in the spotlight, in my opinion, and it's such a shame that she winds up getting sidelined towards the end. You wind up going through Martha's Rest and going back to Phoenix Gate and trying to right the wrongs, and all of it, unfortunately, only leads to a lot of people dying and the reveal that the Mother Crystals are the problem. This is some of my favorite dialogue in the game as Sid, Clive, and Jill go together, as Sid fights alongside Clive here and tries to free him, as they call him, Sid the Vicious and Sid the Outlaw. And of course it leads to Sid's death, and the whole game changes for me. Before this, it was, yeah, Clive is learning to be a person. You know, Clive is becoming human again. He's accepting the responsibility of what he did. He's having to try and shoulder that burden and keep moving forward because there are people that need him. And now it's Clive is the new Sid. He no longer has time to worry about if he deserves to live. He no longer has time to worry about what he did before. He has to keep moving forward because there's too many people that rely on him. And this whole period of doing side quests to get more used to everybody and prove yourself as Sid in a lot of ways was really, really good, leading up to finally getting to take on Hugo Kupka and get revenge. And that fight is incredible. That is such a good fight. The Titan fight is nuts how good that fight is. Afterwards, I was just like floored by how much fun I was having with that fight. And of course, we already have Ramuh's powers by that point, and I haven't talked about the icon powers, so I guess I should real quick. Phoenix abilities are really fun, and I like them, and I used Ifrit's abilities once I got access to those instead of Phoenix's abilities, but Phoenix's abilities are still really solid, and I think give you a good first set, right? Garuda's abilities are really cool. I like the pull a lot, and the fact that it boosts you up into the air if you have an enemy that is heavier than you is really good. I don't think it's as strong as the dash. I think the dash is still definitely like #1 in my mind. However, because I'd used the dash for so long, the pull wound up getting me into a lot of trouble because I kept trying to use it to dash when that's not how that works. And I think Ramuh's is worse in some ways, though it has its cool utility, right? Because it's the aim, and you put the thunderball on somebody and the orb of lightning, right? The ball lightning. And it has cool stuff that it can do, but I kept doing that while trying to dash because I was still trying to get used to having 3 icons, and that wasn't great. But Judgment Bolt was incredible and carried me through a good chunk of the early game. When you finally beat Titan after a knockdown, drag-out fight that includes a little bit of Titan's theme from Final Fantasy XIV, you get Titan's icon. And also, I should mention, we cut off Hugo Kupka's arms. Torgal is like a beast. There's a lot going on in this chunk of the game. Not all of it gets super well explained, but most of it does. And, oh man, Clive, there's so much to talk about in this game, and I don't want to just sit here and regurgitate story to you. So I'm trying to focus on the things that really, like, affected me and my thoughts and feelings on them. But reuniting with Byron, Uncle Byron, heartbreaking scene. I loved that scene. I cried. Full on. The voice acting from Uncle Byron was incredible, but Clive's voice actor knocked it out of the park too, you know? You get Titan, and Titan has a really cool JoJo punch sequence. He has the block that can become a counter. Titan's really useful, and at this point for me, replaced Garuda because I wanted to keep Judgment Bolt on because Judgment Bolt's very good. From here, we head to Sanbreque, and everything going on with Dion and his father and Clive's mother and Joshua's mother that married the Emperor to be able to have a new scion that would be pure-blooded, be touched by the Phoenix and Bahamut, and Dion, through a series of events, winds up killing his dad, all because of Ultima. Because by this point, we figured out Ultima's around. Ultima's a problem, right? Dion loses it. He burns everything and nearly goes Akashic, basically. But we're able to fight him off with the help of Joshua. And Joshua and Clive finally get to fully reunite, and that scene's really good. The scene where Annabelle dies is really good. But for me, it's that Bahamut fight. That Bahamut fight is absolutely incredible. Going into space to fight Bahamut with like Ifrit and Phoenix combined. Oh, it's amazing. And I haven't even talked about how Joshua locked Ultima away inside his body, and he's been using the power of the Phoenix to hold him off all this time. I didn't talk about Typhon and the boss fight there. This game is full of incredible moments. I haven't even talked about the side quests and the different characters there. We'll get to those in just a second. The Bahamut fight is incredible. The music is incredible. Getting Bahamut as an icon is great. Bahamut's incredibly powerful. I used Bahamut for the rest of the game. I love that beam. Giga Flare is nuts how good it is. From here, we head to Waloed. And in Waloed, and again, I know I'm summarizing a lot. We're skipping over a lot of details. Talking about the big moments that really hit me, but please tell me if I skipped one that really hit you in the comment section down below, because we haven't even talked about going to Sid's grave yet after Hugo Kupka is defeated. You go to Waloed with the Enterprise. After you help build it, you chase down the Einherjar, which has the King of Waloed on it. And, like, Barnabas is crazy how strong he is because of Odin. But he splits the ocean. He splits the ocean, and you have a boss fight with Odin, with Barnabas Odin at the bottom of the ocean. Absolutely incredible stuff. I will remember that boss fight for the rest of my days, because I've never fought a boss at the bottom of the ocean after he split the ocean with a single swing of his sword. Great fight. We wind up getting Jill's powers. We get Shiva, and Jill takes a step back. And I really wish she didn't have to. I like Jill Warwick a lot, and from this point on, Jill kind of doesn't do anything. She's not the only one. Joshua's caretaker also takes a step back and is just kind of gone for most of the rest of the story. And it's such a shame, because those characters were really interesting, and I liked them both, and they kind of just get sideswiped for, hey, it's the Clive Joshua Dion Power Hour, and look, I'm all here for the Clive Joshua Dion Power Hour, but I would have liked it to be the Clive Jill Joshua Dion Power Hour, you know? This leads us into Waloed, sort of again, right? You go to Waloed and you fight against Barnabas one more time, and you defeat him, and then it's time for the final battle. And Barnabas, poor Barnabas, man, like, been twisted and tricked by Ultima his entire life. It's time for the final battle, and you and Joshua ride Dion all the way to fight Ultima, and it is an incredible sequence. It's an incredible set of boss fights. The soundtrack is great, and it ends with what seems to be Joshua giving up his life. And it looks like Clive is going to die, but then it's unsure in the final cutscene if Clive is dead or not. Because somebody wrote a book under Clive's name. Could have been Joshua, could have been Clive. But Torgal mourns, maybe? And Gav cries, and Jill seems okay with it, so it's really up to interpretation. But I want to talk about characters now, because I feel like character motivations, in a lot of ways, are somehow even more important in this game than the main plot. Because the main plot, you know, it's one we've seen before, right? It is, hey, being from another world or another galaxy comes here and causes trouble while trying to make a new life on a different star after their star has been destroyed, and winds up causing the same devastation here that they caused elsewhere. They split themselves up, but it doesn't matter, because ultimately this being that has godlike power, Ultima, wound up causing the exact same problem, which is the Akashic problem, the ether problem with the mother crystals that happened on their previous world. And yes, we've seen that story a million times, it feels like now, where, hey, you know, it's not actually a god, it's a being from another realm, and this being has caused the same problems here that happened to their previous world, and we got to stop them, right? Well, we don't ever find that out until the final chunk of the story, and that's how it happens here. But for me, it's the character motivations, because you have, like, Barnabas, who's been tricked by Ultima into believing that the people that become Akashic are going to heaven, that they have a better life where they no longer have to feel pain and everything's okay. And Ultima is outright lying to him, pretending to be his mother, taking his mother's form to trick him. We have Clive desperately fighting against fate, even though he's been chosen as Ultima's perfect vessel. And he doesn't want to be that. He never wanted any of this. He just wanted to be the shield to his brother, Joshua. But now, here, he has no choice. He has to go fight. And so he does with everything he's got. We have Joshua, whose only goal this whole time has been to protect the brother that tried to protect him before. We have Dion, whose life has been twisted and his family ruined by Ultima, and he just wants to get revenge. But also he wants to atone for all the innocent people he killed in his rampage. He can't go back to the man he loves because look at what he's done. There's so much in here character-wise of Sid Telemon, who made a lot of mistakes before and just wants to create a new life and a new world where people aren't forced under this slavery and this system of bearers and dominance, and people can be free. And because of the side quests and how good they are, you get to start that change. You get to help bearers to prove they're just as important as everybody else. You get to break the chain of slavery in this world and remind everyone that they're just people just like each other. And even some of the most well-intentioned people that you meet that are trying to be reasonable to bearers, you help them break their own stigmas to be able to treat bearers like regular people. It's really, really good. And for me, it's not the big main story beats that sell this game. It is the little interpersonal character moments. It is Uncle Byron knowing he can't go with Clive any further, knowing he can't help him by going to fight anymore, wishing his nephews well as he finally got to see them again, and now they go to what is most likely their death. It is the baby being born from Waloed at the exact moment that it seems like Clive and Joshua die. It is Dion getting redemption by fighting against the fate he could not shatter while dying in the process and falling to his death. But proud and willing to do so. It is Gav talking about how he guesses he'll have to be Sid the Third while he's drunk because he can't handle the news that Clive is going to die because Sid's already gone. And what's he going to have when Clive's gone? It's Mid refusing to go to her father's grave because she doesn't want to admit that he's gone. It's all the little wonderful, incredible moments from each character to each other that really make this story amazing. And I'm trying not to choke up now because I didn't realize until I was talking about it how much these characters really mean to me. When Karen tells you, to be careful out there, even though she's normally so rough and mean. When Tharia tells you, make sure you don't come back in bandages. It just... Otto, and the moment when Otto finds the note from Sid. This game is so, so good. And it frustrates me that so many people aren't going to try it because it's not like old Final Fantasies. But it really is. It's the interpersonal story that really sells it. Final Fantasy has never been about the main plot being this super amazing, you've never seen this main plot before, because most Final Fantasy main plots end up with somebody being brainwashed, or hey, here's a surprise boss you didn't know about until right now. Final Fantasy has always been great because of the little interpersonal moments between the characters. And Final Fantasy 16 excels at that in my mind. I absolutely adore the story of this game. I love the music in this game. I love the boss fights in this game. I 100% think if you've listened to all these spoilers, you should still check out Final Fantasy 16 because at the end of the day, this cast is incredible. They're absolutely worth spending time with in my mind. And I wish that I could do a better job of selling you on this game. But I really think you should just give it a shot. Is it my game of the year? Armored Core came out this year, so probably not. But is it my story of the year? Absolutely. I love these characters. I love what was done here. And I think that I will think about that triumphant moment as Clive and Joshua and Dion fight Ultima for a very, very long time. I will think about Sid Telemon helping Clive up off the ground and helping him be a person again for a very, very long time. I will think about those bearers that took up weapons to defend themselves outside Martha's Rest for a very, very long time. Final Fantasy 16 is an absolutely incredible game. Even if I didn't love the action near as much as I wanted to, I loved the story way more than I thought I would. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And until next time, I've been Trey. This has been The Full Spectrum. Remember to always enjoy the full spectrum. Final Fantasy 16 has to offer.